Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 282, Boundaries, Baffle, Burnout. Let's not beat around the bush. Pleasing everyone is not kindness. It's a quiet form of self-erasure. It's time to stop editing yourself out. Yes, I know we don't necessarily want to be centre stage, but we do need to be front and centre of our own lives. So this episode is a shout out and a call in for all the introverts who have been living their lives as though being agreeable is their best currency. It isn't. It's actually insanity. Some of us were taught that being agreeable was the nice thing to do, and some of us ended up finding our own way there as we generally prefer to avoid conflict, but that is not the natural flourishing state. So it's time to unlearn some of our old destructive habits and ways of being. More and more people are beginning to say that unlearning is as important as learning, so the world is cottoning on. But here's the difficult truth. Unlearning and embarking on new learning is effortful, even though it's ultimately rewarding. Keeping on doing the same old thing is relatively effortless but unfulfilling, creating frustration, regret, and even inappropriately expressed anger. If you're curious about the title, Boundaries, Baffling, Burnout, I intentionally chose that word for its multiple meanings. The way I'm using it here infers that boundaries can disrupt or disorientate the path to burnout. And that's the path I've talked about many times before. The start of the path is overwhelm, which may be a daily occurrence for many of us. If we don't rest and recharge sufficiently, we're taking the next step on the path, which is to introvert hangover, where only a couple of duvet days will see us right again. If we don't recharge and replenish effectively once we're in that diminished state, we're opening ourselves up to continue the journey to burnout. In a burnout state, along with the usual physical symptoms, we typically experience absolute exhaustion, emotional numbness and disconnection, contraction and withdrawal, and the inability to access personal purpose and self-motivation, resulting in our preferred flow state slipping through our fingers. This is simply an awful place to be, so I'm keen to apply anything that might disrupt or disorientate the known path and its inevitable destination. Anything that closes the gateway to that path to thwart my progress towards burnout is an essential tool in my toolkit. So I'm here for all the baffle that's available to me, and I hope you are too. You'll have heard me talk about boundaries on many occasions, and I make no apology for mentioning them again, because as introverts it's all too easy to be drawn back into the please others, don't make a fuss, reduce conflict ways of being. And that way of being is oh so familiar, especially when we're sleepwalking through life. We, our families and our colleagues live much of their life this way. It's when we don't know when or how to say no. It feels too difficult. And then what if we have to deal with people who are upset as a result? It's when we want to say no, but it comes with a side helping of guilt, as we've been conditioned to believe that our value corresponds to us being agreeable, accommodating and available. That means that our heart and probably our intuition is saying no, but our head and mouth ends up saying yes. And there's often no one more surprised than us when we say yes. It's also when, ironically, we extend that grace and respect boundaries for others whilst denying ourselves that gift. As you might imagine, all of this is completely unsustainable and in direct opposition to our flourishing. In fact, It's the cause of so much frustration for many of my introverted clients. How can we possibly flourish with overcommitted diaries, or when we're bending ourselves out of shape in order to be badged as a team player? We know that bubbling under the surface like a mud pool ready to belch noxious gas is resentment, sometimes tinged with a little poor me victimhood. They're all sure signs that you're not taking the time you need to pause in order to recharge and replenish. It's also a sign that you're on the slippery slope to burnout. So, stop. I find it useful to dig my heels in so I don't slip any further. And then take some time out to recharge rather than immediately trying to scramble or claw my way back up the slippery slope. There's plenty of time for that to happen once I've more energy and focus. In that recharging pause, I'll be reminding myself that boundaries are not selfish in a negative sense, but they are self-serving in that they help to keep me well mentally, energetically, and emotionally. Far from an impenetrable barrier, you know that I see my boundaries as a picket fence, which is obvious to all and needing about the same amount of regular maintenance. That means they provide clarity that benefits everyone in our lives, which in itself is a form of kindness. My boundaries are a signifier of my self-worth, recognizing that how I show up in life begins with self-leadership. So let's look at some simple yet powerful mindset shifts that will slow your journey on the slippery slope to burnout and strengthen your commitment to your boundary management. And FYI, if you're not already aware, simple and powerful is my MO. Ready? Firstly, saying no is not rejection. The ones that you're saying no to may try to make you feel guilty by acting as though it is, but that's their stuff. You're in control of and responsible for your feelings, and they for theirs. Next, saying no is a redirection of your attention and energy to your best interests. Some call it selfish, like that's a bad thing, but we all know the drill when it comes to oxygen masks on a plane. And finally, your presence is a privilege. Know your worth and hold it high. You're not duty-bound to be there 24/7 for others unless you've contracted to do so. Perpetual availability is a fallacy that serves no one. It's surprising how common and problematic a disempowering mindset can be, which is why we continue to work on it during the Frustrated to Flourishing program. Leaving people stuck on frustration with no way out is simply demoralizing. Anyway, now our mindset is in a better place. Here are 3 practical strategies for you to use on a daily basis. Number 1, create your default delay response, your DDR. Instead of defaulting to yes in order to keep the peace, say, let me get back to you in an hour as I need to check my capacity. That right there is a power pause. Remember the term and use it well. Number 2, define your non-negotiables. Know your limits and hold a firm line. Protect your rest, recharge and replenishment time as closely as you protect your deep work windows and your sensory bandwidth. If it drains you or isn't aligned in some way, it's a clear no. As a friend of mine says, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. Lastly, number 3, use kind but clear language. If you need to say no, use the word no, but with kindness. And yes, I know that no can be a complete sentence, but in business it rarely is. Here are some alternatives. I can't commit to supporting you with that right now, so it's a no from me this time. Please ask in future though. Or, It's not going to work for me at the moment. I appreciate you thinking of me though. Or even, what a lovely invitation. I'm fully booked for the next week, so let's look at it again next Friday. No justifications, no guilt-ridden explanations, just a clear, clean, courteous boundary. Now, if you want ongoing support with this, remember to consider the Frustrated to Flourishing programme, as it's a whole 12 months of support from me as you work through the 9 modules. That's what enables real change to embed. For now, though, it's time to baffle your burnout with boundaries. As you carry on your week, I encourage you to say no to one unnecessary request that doesn't serve you this week. Just one, and notice the relief in your nervous system when you do. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.